Ambassador Kex adjusted his ceremonial robes as he strode into the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Federation. The massive chamber buzzed with the voices of representatives from over 400 species, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes across the tiered seating. At the center of it all sat the humans, looking remarkably calm for a species about to receive an ultimatum. The Zephyrian ambassador's crystalline form caught the light as he moved, casting prismatic patterns on the walls. Behind him marched the combined delegation of the Triple Alliance, Zephyrians, Moldarians, and the insectoid Vextar. They had spent months planning this moment, this final confrontation with the upstart species that had dared to challenge the established order. Esteemed representatives, Kexthul's voice boomed through the translation systems, each word carefully chosen for maximum impact. We gather today to address a grave threat to galactic stability. The humans have violated 17 separate trade agreements, established illegal colonies in disputed sectors, and worst of all, they have refused to acknowledge the rightful territorial claims of superior civilizations. The human delegation sat quietly in their section, 12 individuals in simple dark suits. Their leader, Ambassador Sarah Chen, watched the proceedings with an expression that could only be described as patient amusement. She occasionally whispered something to her aide, a tall man with graying temples who took notes on an old-fashioned paper tablet. Furthermore, the Zephyrian continued, his voice rising with righteous indignation, these humans have had the audacity to reject our generous offer of protectorate status. They refuse to acknowledge their proper place in the galactic hierarchy, insisting on maintaining their primitive concepts of independence and self-governance. A ripple of agreement passed through the Alliance sections. The Moldarians, with their bulbous heads and multiple arms, gestured enthusiastically. The Vextar clicked their mandibles in approval, the sound creating an eerie rhythm that echoed through the chamber. Kexthul paused for dramatic effect, allowing his words to sink in. The humans, he noted with satisfaction, still showed no signs of concern. This would make their capitulation all the sweeter when they realized the hopelessness of their position. The Triple Alliance has been patient, he declared. We have offered these humans numerous opportunities to join civilized galactic society under proper supervision. We have overlooked their aggressive expansion, their refusal to pay appropriate tribute to established powers, and their stubborn insistence on treating all species as equals. Several representatives from neutral species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The concept of equality among different species was still radical in many parts of the galaxy, where strength and technological advancement traditionally determined status. But patience has its limits, Kexthul continued. Today, we present the humans with a final choice. Submit to Alliance oversight, accept protectorate status, and enjoy the benefits of our protection and guidance, or face the consequences of your defiance. The chamber fell silent. Even the ambient hum of life support systems seemed muted, as hundreds of beings waited for the human response. Ambassador Chen stood slowly, her movements unhurried and deliberate. She was smaller than most beings in the chamber, her species lacking the impressive size of the Moldarians or the natural weaponry of the Vextar, yet something in her posture commanded attention. Honored delegates, Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation network. The United Earth Federation appreciates the Alliance's concern for galactic stability. We share that concern, which is why we must respectfully decline your generous offer. A murmur of surprise rippled through the assembly. Many had expected immediate capitulation or at least lengthy negotiations. The humans' calm rejection caught even the Alliance delegates off guard. You see, Chen continued, humanity has learned some hard lessons about the dangers of unchecked authority. Our history is filled with examples of what happens when one group claims superiority over another. We've seen the results of such thinking, and we've decided it has no place in our future. Kexthul's crystalline form darkened, colors shifting to deeper, more ominous hues. You speak of history as if it matters in the face of present reality. The Alliance controls 70% of known space. Our combined fleets number in the millions. Your entire species occupies barely a dozen systems. Numbers can be deceiving, Chen replied with a slight smile. Quality often matters more than quantity. But that's beside the point. We're not interested in a military contest. We're interested in building a galaxy where all species can thrive, according to their own values and desires. The Vextar delegate rose from his position, his multiple legs clicking against the floor. Naive words from a naive species. You speak of thriving, but you have no concept of the real galaxy. Beyond your tiny bubble of space lie horrors that would consume your kind without the protection of established powers. We're aware of the dangers, Chen acknowledged. We've encountered some of them already. The Devourers in the Kepler Nebula, the machine intelligences in the Proxima Void, the energy beings that feed on stellar matter. We've found our own ways of dealing with such threats. This statement caused a stir among the neutral delegates. The threats Chen mentioned were legendary bogeymen, spoken of in hushed tones, even among the most advanced civilizations. Few species admitted to direct contact with such entities, let alone successful resolution of conflicts with them. Impossible. The Moldarian representative gurgled through his translation unit. The Devourers consumed the Stellar Republic 3 centuries ago. No one has faced them and survived. Yet here we are. Chen's aide spoke for the first time. His voice carried a subtle note of steel beneath the polite diplomatic tone. Perhaps your intelligence networks aren't as comprehensive as you believe. Kexthul's colors shifted to angry reds and purples. The humans' casual dismissal of known galactic history bordered on insulting. Even if we accept your unlikely claims, they change nothing. You are one species against an alliance of dozens. Your technology, while adequate, cannot match our combined research capabilities. Your military, such as it is, has never faced a coordinated assault from multiple advanced civilizations. True, Chen agreed readily. We are just one species. But we've learned that sometimes, being alone teaches you things that being part of a group doesn't. We've had to become very good at solving problems that others might solve through sheer force of numbers. The human ambassador moved to the center of the speaking area, her hands clasped behind her back. The Alliance sees our independence as a threat to stability. We understand that perspective. Change is always threatening to those who benefit from the current system. But we believe the galaxy is big enough for different approaches to coexistence. Pretty words, Kexthul sneered. But words mean nothing when faced with the reality of power. The Alliance has given you our terms. Accept them. Or we will be forced to take more direct action to ensure galactic stability. The threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Several neutral delegates exchanged worried glances. Open warfare in the galactic core would disrupt trade routes and threaten civilian populations across dozens of systems. Chen nodded thoughtfully, as if considering a particularly interesting academic problem. Direct action. I assume you mean military force, if necessary. Kexthul confirmed. The Alliance takes no pleasure in the prospect of violence, but order must be maintained, and defiance cannot be allowed to spread to other species who might get similar ideas about independence. I see. Chen turned to address the full assembly. The Alliance has made its position clear. They demand submission to their authority, with the threat of military action if we refuse. This puts us in an awkward position. She paused, looking around the chamber with what seemed like genuine regret. You see, humans have a saying. Be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. The Alliance wants to know what happens when you threaten humanity with war. The aide stepped forward, producing a small device from his jacket. The Federation Council has authorized me to deliver this message to the Galactic Assembly. He activated the device, and a holographic display materialized above the speaking area. The display showed star charts, military deployment patterns, and what appeared to be casualty projections. The numbers made even the most hardened military delegates gasp in surprise. Operation Prometheus has been in planning for 18 months, the aide announced calmly. These projections show what our analysts believe would occur if the Alliance proceeds with military action against human space. As you can see, the results would be significant. The display zoomed in on specific sectors, showing detailed battle scenarios. In every simulation, the Alliance forces found themselves facing not the primitive resistance they expected, but sophisticated defensive networks that seemed to turn their own strengths against them. "Impossible," the Vextar delegate hissed. "Your species lacks the resources for such preparations." "We lack the resources for conventional preparations," Chen corrected. "But then, we've never been particularly conventional. Humanity learned long ago that when facing a superior force, you don't fight on their terms, you change the game entirely." The holographic display shifted to show weapon systems that defied conventional understanding, energy projectors that seemed to violate known physics, defensive barriers that grew stronger under attack, and ships that moved in ways that suggested radical breakthroughs in propulsion technology. "Where did you acquire such technology?" Kexthul demanded, his crystalline form now shifting through rapid color changes that indicated extreme agitation. "We developed it," Chen replied simply. "Necessity is a wonderful motivator for innovation. When you know you might have to face the combined might of 70% of the galaxy, you tend to get creative about solutions." The neutral delegates were now engaged in frantic whispered conversations. The implications of what they were seeing extended far beyond the immediate conflict between humans and the Alliance. If one species could develop such advanced technology in isolation, what did that mean for the existing balance of power? "You're bluffing," the Moldarian representative declared, though uncertainty crept into his voice. "No species achieves such advancement without access to the combined research networks of established civilizations." Chen's aide smiled, the expression somehow more unsettling than any overt threat. "The beauty of being underestimated is that no one pays attention to what you're actually doing." While the Alliance was busy managing their vast territories and maintaining their bureaucratic systems, humanity was focused on a single question: how do we survive in a hostile universe? The answer, Chen continued, turned out to be surprisingly simple. We stopped thinking like prey and started thinking like the predators our ancestors were. The same drives that helped primitive humans hunt megafauna and survive ice ages turned out to be quite useful when applied to problems of galactic warfare. The holographic display now showed deployment patterns spreading across Alliance space. The simulated human forces didn't mass for traditional confrontations but instead spread through enemy territory like a plague, striking critical infrastructure and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. "Terrorist tactics," Kexthul spat. "The mark of a barbaric species. The mark of a species that understands warfare," Chen corrected. "Your civilizations have grown soft through centuries of overwhelming technological superiority. You've forgotten that war isn't about having the biggest fleet or the most advanced weapons. It's about breaking your enemy's will to fight." The aide touched another control, and the display zoomed out to show the full scope of the projected conflict. Red markers indicated critical Alliance installations that would be targeted in the opening phases. The pattern revealed an understanding of Alliance logistics and vulnerabilities that should have been impossible for an outside observer to acquire. "How do you know so much about our defensive systems?" the Vextar delegate demanded. "We asked nicely," the aide replied with a straight face. "You'd be amazed how much information beings will share when they think they're talking to primitive, harmless humans. Your species' tendency to underestimate us has been quite useful for intelligence gathering." The implications hit the Alliance delegates like a physical blow. For years, they had dealt with human merchants, diplomats, and tourists throughout their space. They had shared information freely, seeing no threat in educating what they considered a backward species about galactic civilization. "You've been planning this from the beginning," Kexthul accused, his colors now cycling through the entire spectrum in rapid succession. "We've been planning for contingencies," Chen corrected. "It's what responsible governments do." The fact that one of those contingencies involved potential conflict with the Alliance was unfortunate but necessary given your stated intentions regarding our independence. The human ambassador moved closer to the Alliance section, her expression remaining pleasant despite the growing tension. "The Alliance has demanded to know what happens when you threaten humanity with war. We've shown you. The question now is whether you really want to find out if our projections are accurate. You cannot seriously believe that 12 human systems can stand against the combined might of 3 galactic powers," the Moldarian representative protested. "No," Chen agreed. We can't stand against you in a traditional sense. But then, we're not planning a traditional defense. We're planning something much more effective. The holographic display flickered and changed, now showing a single human ship approaching a massive Alliance battle station. The ship was smaller than the station's point defense turrets, seemingly insignificant against the massive military installation. This is the ANS Retribution, the aide narrated as they watched the simulation. One of our newer designs. Crew of 3. Total mass equivalent to a large asteroid. Watch what happens when it encounters your finest defensive network. The simulation played out in horrifying detail. The tiny human ship seemed to dance between defensive fire, its movements too erratic for tracking systems designed to target conventional vessels. Then it reached the station's hull and simply disappeared inside, passing through armor plating as if it weren't there. Impossible, Kexthul breathed. No known technology can phase through solid matter like that. Known technology, Chen emphasized. That's the key phrase. Humanity has had to develop technologies that others considered impossible because we couldn't rely on conventional solutions. The simulation continued, showing the human ship moving through the station's interior like a virus through a body. Critical systems began failing in cascade fashion as the tiny vessel somehow disrupted everything it passed. What is that thing doing? The Vextar delegate demanded. Winning, the aide replied simply. When you can't match your enemy's strength, you attack their weaknesses. Every complex system has failure points. Find enough of them, and even the mightiest fortress becomes helpless. The simulation ended with the massive battle station going dark, its weapons offline and its crew struggling with cascading system failures. The tiny human ship emerged from the hull and accelerated away, leaving devastation in its wake. One ship, Chen said quietly. One ship against your most powerful military installation. Now imagine what happens when we deploy 100 such vessels. Or 1,000. The chamber had fallen completely silent. Even the neutral delegates seemed stunned by the implications of what they had witnessed. The careful balance of power that had maintained galactic stability for centuries appeared to be crumbling before their eyes. This is madness, Kexthul finally managed. You're talking about unleashing technologies that could destabilize everything. The chaos alone would destroy countless innocent lives. The chaos would be regrettable, Chen acknowledged. Which is why we sincerely hope it doesn't come to that. The Alliance still has a choice: accept human independence and find ways to coexist peacefully. Or discover firsthand whether our defensive preparations are as effective as we believe them to be. The human ambassador returned to her seat, her demeanor once again calm and diplomatic. We've shared this information not as a threat, but as a courtesy. The Alliance deserves to understand the full consequences of their proposed actions before they commit to a course that cannot be undone. The Moldarian representative was frantically consulting with his advisors, their multiple arms gesturing in obvious agitation. The Vextar delegate had gone completely still, his compound eyes fixed on the now empty display area. Only Kexthul maintained any semblance of composure, though his rapidly shifting colors betrayed his inner turmoil. You cannot expect us to make such a momentous decision based on simulations and projections, Kexthul protested. These could all be elaborate fabrications designed to intimidate us into submission. They could be, Chen agreed readily. That's a risk you'll have to evaluate for yourselves. But consider this. We've had no reason to develop such elaborate deceptions. Until today, the Alliance posed no direct threat to human space. We could have simply agreed to your terms and avoided this entire confrontation. Then why didn't you? The Vextar delegate asked, genuine curiosity overriding his earlier hostility. Chen stood again, her expression becoming more serious. Because submission to tyranny, no matter how benevolent it claims to be, is still tyranny. Humanity learned that lesson through bitter experience on our homeworld. We watched as well-meaning authorities gradually eroded freedom in the name of safety and stability. We saw how quickly benevolent protection could become oppressive control. The galaxy is not Earth, Kexthul pointed out. The challenges here require coordination and authority, that primitive concepts of independence simply cannot provide. Perhaps, Chen conceded. But we'd prefer to discover that through our own experience, rather than simply accepting your word for it. If independence leads to our destruction, then at least it will be our choice to make that mistake. The aide activated his device again, and new data appeared in the holographic display. This time, instead of weapons and battle projections, it showed trade routes, communication networks, and collaborative research projects. Of course, Chen continued, we're not interested only in military preparations. Humanity believes in the power of cooperation when it's freely chosen rather than imposed. We've developed technologies and capabilities that could benefit the entire galaxy if shared appropriately. The new display showed medical advances that could extend lifespans for dozens of species, energy systems that could power entire star systems with minimal environmental impact, and communication technologies that could bridge the gap between the most disparate forms of consciousness. We offer these advances freely to any species that wishes to cooperate with us as equals, Chen announced. But they will never be available to those who demand submission as the price of interaction. The contrast was stark, and deliberately so. The Alliance could choose between the devastating military technologies they had seen earlier, or the beneficial civilian advances now being displayed, but they could not have both submission and cooperation. This is extortion, the Moldarian representative protested. You're attempting to coerce galactic policy through threats and bribes. We're offering choices, Chen corrected. The same choice we've always offered. Mutual respect and voluntary cooperation. Or conflict imposed by those who refuse to accept any relationship based on equality. The human delegation began gathering their materials, preparing to leave the assembly. Their message had been delivered, and further discussion would only dilute its impact. The Alliance now has all the information necessary to make an informed decision, Chen announced to the assembly. We await your response, though we hope you'll take sufficient time to fully consider the implications of whatever course you choose. As the humans filed out of the chamber, the remaining delegates erupted into chaotic discussion. Alliance representatives huddled in emergency conferences, while neutral species tried to process the dramatic shift in galactic politics they had just witnessed. Behind them, the holographic display continued cycling through projections and data, a silent reminder that the age of unquestioned Alliance dominance might be coming to an end. The question now was whether that end would come through negotiation, or through the kind of warfare that could reshape the galaxy itself. In the corridors outside the assembly hall, Ambassador Chen paused to speak with her aide. Do you think they believed us? The man considered the question seriously before responding. The technology demonstrations were convincing enough. Whether they're willing to risk calling what they think might be a bluff remains to be seen. And if they do call it, then we discover whether 18 months of preparation was enough to back up our promises. He paused, then added with a slight smile, though I suspect they have no idea what they'd actually be getting themselves into. Chen nodded, a mixture of hope and resignation in her expression. For all our sakes, let's hope wisdom prevails over pride. The galaxy has enough problems without adding an interstellar war to the list. As they walked away, neither human noticed the small recording device that had been discreetly monitoring their conversation. In the Alliance intelligence networks, analysts were already beginning to decode what they had captured, searching for any clue about the reality behind humanity's confident threats. The game of interstellar politics had just become far more complex, and the stakes had never been higher. The emergency session of the Alliance High Command convened in the war room of Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the military headquarters for 3 of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. The chamber itself reflected the combined might of the Alliance. Zephyrian crystal architecture provided the walls. Moldarian biotechnology maintained the atmosphere and life support systems, while Vextar engineering managed the complex holographic displays and data networks. Fleet Admiral Vorthak of the Moldarian Navy studied the intelligence reports with growing unease. His 4 arms worked independently. One manipulating holographic controls, another reviewing personnel files, a third drumming nervously on the conference table, while the 4th gestured emphatic points to his fellow commanders. The reports painted a disturbing picture of human activity throughout Alliance space. 17 covert observation posts, he announced to the assembled officers. 17 facilities that our intelligence services missed completely. They've been watching our fleet movements, recording our communications, and mapping our defensive networks for over 2 years. General Exexith of the Vextar war caste clicked her mandibles in agitation. Her compound eyes reflected the light from the tactical displays as she processed multiple data streams simultaneously. The sophistication is troubling. These aren't crude spy devices hidden in asteroid fields. They're integrated into our own infrastructure. The humans somehow convinced our maintenance crews to install monitoring equipment disguised as standard upgrades. Supreme Commander Zalthon's crystalline form pulsed with angry red light as he absorbed the implications. They walked into our most secure facilities and convinced our own people to help them spy on us. How is that possible? Social engineering. Admiral Vorthok replied grimly. The humans appear to have studied our psychological profiles as extensively as our military capabilities. They knew exactly which personnel would be susceptible to persuasion, which regulations could be exploited, and which security protocols had exploitable weaknesses. The holographic display shifted to show a timeline of human activity throughout Alliance space. The pattern was clear, once revealed. Years of careful preparation, building networks of information and influence, while maintaining the appearance of primitive traders and tourists. Look at this shipping manifest. General Exexith indicated a specific data stream. Human merchant vessel, Peaceful Trader, made 47 stops at military installations over 8 months. Each time, they delivered supplies that passed all security screenings. But the accumulated deliveries included components for a complete long-range communication array. Spread across 47 locations, Commander Zalthon observed. Individual components would be undetectable, but when assembled, his light patterns shifted to indicate deep concern. They could monitor our entire command network, Admiral Vorthok confirmed. Real-time intelligence on fleet movements. Tactical planning. Even this conversation, if we hadn't implemented new security protocols this morning, the implications were staggering. For months, possibly years, the humans had been privy to the Alliance's most sensitive military information. They knew force deployment patterns, response times, weapon capabilities, and strategic doctrine with better accuracy than most Alliance officers possessed. This explains their confidence, General Exexith mused. They weren't bluffing in the assembly. They genuinely believe they can predict our responses because they've been studying us like laboratory specimens. The question, Commander Zalthon interrupted, is whether their confidence is justified. Intelligence is useful, but it doesn't change the fundamental reality of our numerical and technological superiority. Admiral Vorthok manipulated the display controls, bringing up fleet deployment charts. Current Alliance forces in human-adjacent space. 12,000 battle cruisers, 40,000 support vessels, and planetary defense networks protecting 15 major worlds. Conservative estimates suggest we could overwhelm human defenses within 6 standard days. Conservative estimates based on conventional warfare. A new voice interjected from the chamber entrance. Ambassador Kexthul entered the war room, his crystalline form darker than usual, reflecting his somber mood. The humans made it quite clear they don't intend to fight conventionally. The 3 military commanders turned their attention to the diplomat, their expressions ranging from respectful attention to barely concealed irritation. Military leaders rarely appreciated political interference in strategic planning. Your assessment, Ambassador? Commander Zalthon requested formally. The humans are not bluffing, Kexthul stated without preamble. Our xenopsychology experts have analyzed every aspect of their presentation. The technology demonstrations were genuine. Their confidence was authentic, and their willingness to accept devastating casualties was disturbing. General Exexith's antennae twitched with interest. Elaborate on that last point. Human psychology differs significantly from our own species, the ambassador explained. Where we value preservation of established order and minimization of losses, humans appear to place ultimate value on self-determination. Their historical records show repeated instances of accepting catastrophic casualties rather than submitting to external authority. The holographic display shifted again, now showing historical human conflicts from their homeworld. The images were difficult for the Alliance officers to process. Mass destruction accepted by both sides rather than negotiated settlement. Entire populations choosing death over surrender. Technological civilizations reverting to primitive warfare when their survival seemed threatened. "This is madness," Admiral Vorthok protested. "No rational species would accept such losses when peaceful alternatives exist." "Rational by our standards," Ambassador Kexthul corrected. "The humans operate under a different definition of rationality. They consider freedom more important than survival, and independence more valuable than prosperity." Commander Zalthon's light patterns shifted to indicate deep thought. If they're willing to accept massive casualties, then traditional deterrent strategies become ineffective. We can't threaten them with consequences they're already prepared to accept. Worse, the ambassador continued, our psychological profiles suggest they'll become more dangerous as casualties mount. Human combat effectiveness actually increases under extreme pressure. They have a documented tendency to fight harder when faced with extinction. This revelation settled over the war room like a toxic cloud. The Alliance military doctrine was based on overwhelming force used to achieve quick, decisive victories with minimal losses on both sides. The prospect of facing an enemy that became more effective as the conflict escalated was deeply unsettling. "Show us their technological capabilities," General Exexith requested. Regardless of their psychological profiles, they still have to fight with actual weapons and ships. The display shifted to show detailed analysis of the human technology demonstrations from the assembly. Alliance scientists had spent the past 18 hours studying every frame of the recordings, trying to understand the principles behind the seemingly impossible devices. Preliminary analysis suggests they've achieved breakthroughs in quantum manipulation that our physicists considered theoretical impossibilities, Admiral Vorthak reported. Their ships appear to use controlled quantum tunneling for both propulsion and defensive systems. Meaning? Commander Zalthon requested clarification. Meaning they can phase through solid matter at will, making conventional weapons ineffective, the Admiral explained grimly. Their ships could pass through our defensive barriers, our hull armor, even our energy shields, as if they didn't exist. The implications were staggering. The Alliance's massive technological advantage suddenly seemed meaningless if human vessels could simply ignore their weapons and defenses. "How is this possible?" General Exexith demanded. "Our research networks span thousands of worlds and employ millions of scientists. How could one isolated species achieve such breakthroughs?" Ambassador Kexthul manipulated the display controls, bringing up comparative research data. Different approaches to scientific development. The Alliance maintains vast research bureaucracies that excel at incremental improvements to established technologies. Humans appear to focus on radical innovations driven by immediate survival needs. The display showed parallel research timelines. Alliance projects move through careful stages of peer review, committee approval, and safety testing over decades or centuries. Human projects showed rapid iteration cycles, with dangerous experimental technologies being deployed within months of initial conception. "They're not building technologies," Commander Zalthon observed. "They're building weapons. Every innovation is designed with conflict in mind, because they've been expecting conflict since they achieved spaceflight." The ambassador confirmed. Human civilization developed under constant threat from their own species. They've simply extended that expectation to galactic relations. Admiral Vorthok brought up comparative casualty projections, the numbers making even hardened military officers uncomfortable. If their technology works as demonstrated, we're looking at unprecedented losses. Our simulations suggest 70% fleet casualties within the first month of open conflict. Unacceptable, General Exexith stated flatly. The Alliance cannot sustain such losses while maintaining security against other threats. The alternatives, Ambassador Kexthul pointed out, are accepting human independence or finding ways to neutralize their capabilities without direct military confrontation. Assassination, Commander Zalthon suggested. Remove their leadership and hope their civilization fragments? Attempted, the ambassador replied. 3 separate intelligence operations over the past year. All failed completely. The humans appear to have developed countermeasures that make their key personnel effectively untouchable. Sabotage their technological base? Admiral Vorthak offered. Their manufacturing is distributed across multiple hidden facilities in deep space. We don't even know where most of them are located. The military commanders exchanged grim looks. Every conventional solution seemed to lead to the same conclusion: direct military confrontation with an enemy that had prepared extensively for exactly that scenario. There is one possibility, General Exexeth said slowly. The humans have shown their defensive capabilities, but they've also revealed their offensive intentions. If they truly mean to carry out the attacks shown in their projections, they'll have to expose their forces to counterattack. Explain, Commander Zalthon requested. Their strategy depends on stealth and surprise. Small forces attacking critical infrastructure before disappearing back into deep space. But they can't maintain that approach indefinitely. Eventually, they'll have to hold territory or defend fixed positions. Admiral Vorthak nodded slowly. Force them to fight the kind of war we're prepared for, rather than the kind they want. How? Ambassador Kexthul asked. By making continued hit-and-run attacks impossible, General Exexeth explained. If we can't find their hidden bases, we make it impossible for them to return to those bases. Blockade their territory completely. Force them to come to us for resources they can't produce in isolation. The holographic display shifted to show strategic positions throughout the region, a network of choke points and monitoring stations that could effectively seal human space from the rest of the galaxy. A siege strategy, Commander Zalthon mused. Cut them off from galactic commerce and wait for their hidden resources to run out. It would require massive fleet deployments, Admiral Vorthak warned. We'd have to maintain blockade forces for months, possibly years. Better than accepting the casualties of direct assault, General Exexeth countered. And it puts the burden of action on them. They'll have to come to us when their supplies run low. Ambassador Kexthul studied the proposed deployment patterns with growing unease. You're assuming they haven't prepared for siege warfare as thoroughly as they prepared for direct conflict. They're one species with limited resources, Admiral Vorthak protested. They can't have contingencies for every possible strategy. They've surprised us repeatedly, the ambassador pointed out. Underestimating their preparations has already proven costly. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent communication alert. A junior officer appeared in the holographic display, his expression indicating extreme urgency. Sir, we're receiving priority alerts from 17 Alliance facilities across 4 sectors. All report simultaneous equipment failures in their primary defensive systems. The war room fell silent. The timing was too precise to be coincidental. Specify the nature of these failures, Commander Zalthon ordered. Quantum resonance cascades in primary shield generators, sir. The same pattern at all 17 locations. Engineering teams report that the failures appear to have been triggered by remote activation of dormant systems integrated into the shield networks. Admiral Vorthak's expression darkened as the implications became clear. The monitoring devices. They weren't just gathering intelligence. They were positioning sabotage systems throughout our infrastructure. General Exexeth's mandibles clicked rapidly as she processed the new information. How long ago were these devices installed? Some as early as 2 years ago, sir. The humans have had access to our defensive networks for... The officer paused, consulting his data. Potentially. Since they first began trading in Alliance space, the revelation struck the assembled commanders like a physical blow. While they had been debating strategy and analyzing human capabilities, the enemy had already demonstrated their ability to cripple Alliance defenses at will. Are the affected facilities operational? Commander Zalthon demanded. Negative, sir. Shield failures have left all 17 installations vulnerable to attack. Estimated repair time is 6 to 8 weeks, assuming replacement components can be manufactured and delivered. Status of fleet units attached to those facilities? All vessels have been recalled to secondary defensive positions. Current fleet strength in affected areas is reduced by approximately 30%. Ambassador Kexthul's crystalline form had gone completely dark. They've already begun their war. While we debated whether to take their threat seriously, they've crippled our defensive infrastructure. This is just the beginning, Admiral Vorthak realized. If they can trigger coordinated failures like this, they probably have similar capabilities throughout our entire network. The holographic display updated to show the affected installations in red. As the officers watched, more red markers appeared as additional facilities reported similar failures. 34 installations now affected, the communications officer reported. The pattern is expanding. Cut all quantum communication links, General Executive ordered. If they're using our own networks to trigger these failures, isolating the systems might limit the damage. That will also prevent coordination between our own forces, Admiral Vorthak warned. Better than watching our entire infrastructure collapse, the general replied grimly. Commander Zalthon moved to the tactical center, his form pulsing with urgent light patterns. Implement Defense Protocol Omega. All fleet units are to assume independent operation until secure communications can be re-established. Sir, another communication alert interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the human delegation. They're requesting permission to address the Alliance Command directly. The irony was bitter. Even as human sabotage crippled Alliance infrastructure, they maintained diplomatic protocols. Ambassador Kexthul gestured for the communication to be accepted. Ambassador Chen appeared in the holographic display, her expression conveying what might have been genuine regret. Alliance Command, I hope you'll forgive the dramatic timing of our demonstration. We felt it necessary to prove that our capabilities extended beyond simulations and projections. You've committed acts of war against Alliance infrastructure, Admiral Vorthak accused. We've conducted defensive preparations, Chen corrected calmly. The systems affected were modified installations that could have been used to stage attacks against human space. We've simply ensured they're temporarily unavailable for offensive operations. General Executive leaned forward, her compound eyes focusing intently on the human diplomat. Temporarily? The failures are reversible, Chen confirmed. When this crisis passes, we'll provide technical assistance to restore full functionality to affected systems. We have no interest in causing permanent damage to Alliance infrastructure. Your terms, Commander Zalthon demanded, recognizing the negotiating position being established. The same terms we offered in the assembly. Recognition of human independence, establishment of diplomatic relations based on mutual respect, and abandonment of any plans to impose protectorate status on our territory. And if we refuse? Chen's expression hardened slightly. Then you'll discover that the current demonstration represents only a fraction of our preparation for this contingency. The choice remains yours, but I strongly recommend considering the full implications of escalation. The communication ended, leaving the Alliance commanders to contemplate their limited options. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that invalidated conventional military doctrine, while offering a path to resolution that preserved Alliance dignity. Status report on remaining installations, Admiral Vorthak requested. 87 facilities now reporting defensive system failures, the communications officer responded. The pattern continues to expand despite our communication isolation protocols. They're not using our networks, General Executive realized. The sabotage systems were designed to activate independently, probably on a predetermined schedule. Which means this is only the first phase, Ambassador Kexthul concluded grimly. They've shown us they can cripple our defenses. The next demonstration will likely target our offensive capabilities. Commander Zalthon's light patterns shifted to indicate deep contemplation. Recommendations? We could attempt to locate and destroy their hidden bases, Admiral Vorthak suggested, without conviction. With what intelligence? General Executive pointed out. They've demonstrated superior knowledge of our capabilities, while revealing almost nothing about their own operational infrastructure. We could withdraw all forces to core systems and dare them to attack heavily defended targets, the Admiral offered. Abandoning our frontier territories would be seen as weakness by every species in the galaxy, Ambassador Kexthul warned. The political consequences could be worse than military defeat. The holographic display updated again, showing the expanding pattern of defensive failures. What had begun as isolated incidents was becoming systematic collapse of Alliance military infrastructure throughout the region. 130 installations affected, the communications officer reported. At current rate of expansion, we estimate total defensive network failure within 48 hours. The numbers painted a stark picture. The Alliance's carefully constructed military dominance was evaporating faster than their ability to respond. The humans had turned decades of Alliance infrastructure development into a weapon against its creators. There is another consideration, Ambassador Kexthul said quietly. The neutral species in the assembly witnessed the human presentation. Word of our current difficulties will spread rapidly through diplomatic channels. Meaning? Admiral Vorthak asked, though his tone suggested he already understood. Meaning other species will be evaluating whether human independence represents an opportunity for their own liberation from Alliance oversight, the ambassador explained. If we appear unable to maintain control over one rebellious species, others may decide to test our authority. The implications extended far beyond the immediate conflict with humanity. The Alliance's power rested as much on the appearance of invincibility as on actual military strength. Any sign of weakness could trigger widespread challenges to established authority. The Stellar Confederation has been restive lately, General Exexith observed. Their tribute payments have been irregular, and their fleet movements suggest preparation for something. 1. The Outer Rim territories have been requesting increased autonomy for years, Admiral Vorthak added. If they perceive Alliance weakness, we could face multiple simultaneous rebellions, Commander Zalthon concluded. Each one encouraged by human success against our forces. The strategic picture was becoming increasingly grim. What had appeared to be a minor disciplinary action against an upstart species was revealing itself as a potential catalyst for galactic upheaval. Priority communication from the Moldarian High Council, another alert interrupted their discussion. They're demanding immediate explanation of defensive system failures throughout Moldarian space. The Vextar Queen is also requesting clarification, General Exexith added, as her own communication systems activated. The hive mind is displeased with unexpected vulnerabilities in their territory. Ambassador Kexthul's crystalline form darkened further. Our own governments are beginning to question our competence. If we cannot provide satisfactory explanations, the political ramifications were becoming as dangerous as the military ones. The Alliance High Command derived their authority from the continued confidence of their respective governments. Spectacular failure against a supposedly primitive enemy could result in their replacement by leaders more willing to accommodate human demands. We need options, Commander Zalthon stated. Continuing current strategies leads to systematic defeat. We need alternatives that preserve Alliance authority while addressing the immediate threat. Negotiate, Ambassador Kexthul said simply. Accept human independence in exchange for cessation of their sabotage operations and technical assistance in repairing damaged systems. That sets a precedent for every species that wants to challenge Alliance authority, Admiral Vorthak protested. The precedent has already been set, the ambassador pointed out. The humans have demonstrated that Alliance military superiority isn't absolute. Trying to suppress that knowledge through continued conflict will only spread it further. General Exexith's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. There might be a way to frame this as Alliance policy, rather than Alliance defeat. Present human independence as a reward for exceptional achievement, rather than successful rebellion. Explain, Commander Zalthon requested. The humans have demonstrated technological capabilities that exceed even our own, she began. We could position their independence as recognition of their advancement to peer status, rather than successful resistance to our authority. That might preserve face with other species, Admiral Vorthak admitted reluctantly. If independence is presented as something that must be earned through exceptional achievement, rather than something that can be seized through successful rebellion, Ambassador Kexthul finished. It's politically viable. Assuming we can convince our own governments to support the narrative. The holographic display updated with another wave of system failures, emphasizing the urgency of their decision. Each additional facility that went offline weakened their negotiating position and strengthened human leverage. 160 installations now affected, the communications officer reported. We're approaching critical threshold for regional defense coordination. Time is working against us, Commander Zalthon observed. The longer we delay, the more comprehensive their demonstration becomes, and the more obvious our inability to respond effectively, General Exexith added. Admiral Vorthok studied the tactical displays with obvious frustration. We're being systematically outmaneuvered by an enemy we underestimated. Our intelligence failed, our technology proved inadequate, and our strategic doctrine is obsolete against their methods. The question, Ambassador Kexthul said, is whether we learn from this experience or allow pride to compound our mistakes. A new communication alert interrupted their discussion. This time, the source wasn't a facility reporting system failures but a deep space monitoring station at the edge of Alliance territory. Priority alert from Station Omega-7, the officer announced. They report multiple unknown contacts approaching from human space. Sensor profiles don't match any known human vessels. The tactical display shifted to show long-range sensor data from the monitoring station. The contacts were massive, larger than anything in current human fleets, and their energy signatures suggested technology even more advanced than what had been demonstrated in the assembly. Estimated arrival time at Alliance border? Commander Zalthon demanded. 6 hours, sir. Current trajectory suggests they're heading for the Nexus Prime system. The implications were staggering. While the Alliance command had been dealing with sabotage and system failures, the humans had been moving unknown assets into position for what appeared to be a direct assault on Alliance headquarters. Fleet status? Admiral Vorthok requested. 40% of regional forces are dealing with defensive system failures. Available units are scattered across 12 sectors responding to infrastructure crises. We're in no position to mount an effective defense, General Exexith stated grimly. Perhaps defense isn't what's being requested, Ambassador Kexthul suggested. The humans have consistently acted with restraint. These vessels might be coming to negotiate rather than attack, or they're coming to demand our surrender, Admiral Vorthok countered. Commander Zalthon's light patterns cycled through rapid sequences as he processed their options. Alert all available fleet units to converge on Nexus Prime. We'll meet these unknown vessels with whatever force we can muster. And if they prove as advanced as their technology demonstrations suggest, General Exexith asked, then we discover whether the Alliance can adapt to a new reality, or whether our age of dominance has come to an end. The war room fell silent as the assembled commanders contemplated the approaching confrontation. Everything they had believed about galactic power structures was being challenged by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The next few hours would determine whether the Alliance could evolve, or would be swept aside by forces they had never imagined possible. In the depths of space, the unknown human vessels continued their approach. Their intentions as mysterious as their technology. Behind them, Alliance installations continued failing in carefully orchestrated sequences, each collapse demonstrating the futility of resistance against an enemy that had been preparing for this moment far longer than anyone had realized. The galaxy was about to change, and there was no guarantee that the old order would survive the transformation. The unknown vessels emerged from hyperspace with a precision that defied conventional understanding of faster-than-light navigation. Instead of the chaotic energy signatures typical of large fleet arrivals, they appeared in perfect formation without disturbing so much as a particle of cosmic dust. The 3 massive ships hung motionless in space, exactly at the boundary of Alliance territorial claims, their dark hulls reflecting no light despite the nearby star's illumination. Admiral Vorthok stared at the sensor readings from the bridge of the Alliance flagship Eternal Dominion, his 4 arms working frantically to process data that made no sense, according to known physics. The vessels were enormous, each one larger than an Alliance battle station, yet they registered almost no mass on gravitational sensors. Their energy output was negligible despite the obvious power required to maintain position and life support for crews that must number in the millions. Composition analysis, he demanded from his science officer. Inconclusive, Admiral. Sensors indicate the hulls are constructed from materials that don't appear in any known periodic table. The molecular structure seems to shift randomly, preventing detailed scans. Communications attempts? No response to standard hailing frequencies. However, they're broadcasting a single message on all channels. Alliance Command requested to send a single representative for immediate negotiations. General Exexith's voice crackled through the communication system from her own flagship. Trap assessment suggests minimal probability of deception. The vessels could have attacked our scattered forces hours ago, if hostile intent was their primary motivation. That's exactly what makes this suspicious, Admiral Vorthak replied. No species deploys this level of force simply for negotiations. Commander Zalthon's crystalline form appeared in the holographic communication display. Analysis of their formation suggests defensive, rather than offensive positioning. They're prepared to protect themselves but not positioned for assault on our installations. The human vessels maintained their position while Alliance forces scrambled to establish some semblance of defensive coordination. 3 hours had passed since their arrival, and they had made no aggressive moves despite the obvious vulnerability of Alliance infrastructure throughout the region. Status of our response capabilities? Admiral Vorthak requested. 68 ships of the line available for immediate deployment, his tactical officer reported. Additional units are en route, but won't arrive for another 4 hours. Against 3 vessels of unknown capability, General Exexith observed, hardly overwhelming odds considering what we've seen of human technology. Ambassador Kex Thul materialized in the communication display, his crystalline form reflecting the stress of the past day's events. The diplomatic implications of this situation require careful consideration. If these vessels represent humanity's true military capability, then everything we believed about the balance of galactic power has been incorrect. You're recommending negotiation? Admiral Vorthak asked. I'm recommending that we avoid making decisions based on wounded pride rather than strategic reality, the ambassador replied. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that exceed our own, while consistently offering opportunities for peaceful resolution. They've also demonstrated the ability to cripple our infrastructure at will, Commander Zalthon pointed out. That hardly suggests peaceful intentions. It suggests thorough preparation for conflict they hope to avoid, Kex Thul corrected. There's a significant difference. The debate was interrupted by an urgent alert from the sensor stations. Admiral, we're detecting energy buildup in the human vessels. Power levels are increasing exponentially. Preparing to attack? The Admiral demanded. Negative, sir. The energy patterns suggest they're opening some kind of portal. The main display shifted to show the space around the human fleet. Reality itself seemed to twist and bend between the 3 massive ships, creating a shimmering distortion that grew larger with each passing moment. Through the distortion, shapes began to emerge, more ships, but these were clearly different from the 3 vessels already present. Fleet Admiral, his communications officer announced with poorly concealed shock. We're reading approximately 1,000 vessels emerging through that. Whatever it is, the numbers were staggering. In minutes, the human force had grown from 3 ships to over 1,000, with more still emerging from the spatial distortion. Each vessel that appeared was unique in design, suggesting technological diversity that should have been impossible for a single civilization to achieve. Sensor analysis of the new arrivals? Admiral Vorthak requested, though he suspected the answer would only compound his problems. Each ship registers different energy signatures and hull compositions. It's as if they represent completely different technological paradigms unified under human command. General Exexith's voice carried new urgency when she spoke. Fleet Admiral, I'm reading similar portal activity in 17 different star systems throughout Alliance space. The humans aren't just making a show of force here. They're positioning assets throughout our entire territory. The strategic situation had shifted from dangerous to catastrophic in a matter of minutes. The Alliance found itself facing not a raid or limited assault, but a coordinated operation that demonstrated planning and capability beyond their worst-case scenarios. Estimated total human force deployment? Commander Zalthon inquired. Conservative estimates suggest over 50,000 vessels now in position throughout Alliance space, General Exexith reported. We're outnumbered approximately 3 to 1. And that's assuming our scattered forces could somehow coordinate an effective response. Ambassador Kex Thul studied the tactical displays with growing apprehension. This level of force deployment suggests the humans were prepared for total war from the beginning. Either they never expected peaceful resolution, or they wanted to ensure any conflict would be decided quickly. Maybe both, Admiral Vorthak admitted grimly. Deploy everything we have. If we're going to fight, let's at least make it costly for them. Wait, Commander Zalthon interrupted. We're receiving another transmission from the human vessels. The main display activated to show Ambassador Chen, but she was no longer wearing diplomatic attire. Instead, She appeared in what was clearly military uniform, her expression conveying the gravity of the situation while maintaining diplomatic courtesy. "Alliance Command," she began. "I regret that circumstances have required this dramatic escalation. However, your intelligence activities over the past 6 hours convinced our leadership that diplomatic resolution might not be possible." "What intelligence activities?" Admiral Vorthok demanded. "Your attempts to locate and attack our hidden infrastructure while negotiations were supposedly ongoing," Chen replied calmly. "We've monitored 17 separate penetration attempts against our territorial space, including 3 direct assaults on our outer defense networks." The Admiral exchanged glances with his fellow commanders. The operations Chen described had indeed been authorized as contingency measures, but the humans shouldn't have been able to detect them, much less monitor them in real time. "Those were defensive reconnaissance missions," he protested. "Missions involving armed vessels penetrating sovereign territory," Chen corrected. "Under any reasonable interpretation, those actions constitute acts of war." "Your point?" General Exexith interjected. "My point is that we've reached a decision point. The Alliance can either accept human independence and the new realities it represents, or we can settle this matter through military action. But continued attempts to have both negotiation and preparation for backstabbing will not be tolerated." Commander Zalthon's light patterns shifted to indicate serious consideration. "What guarantee do we have that accepting your independence won't simply encourage other species to make similar demands backed by similar threats?" Chen's expression softened slightly. "You have our word that we have no interest in destabilizing galactic civilization. Human independence doesn't require the destruction of Alliance authority over other species. We simply refuse to accept it over ourselves." "And if other species develop similar capabilities?" Ambassador Kexthul asked. "Then the galaxy becomes more interesting," Chen replied with what might have been a smile. "Competition encourages innovation, and innovation benefits everyone. The Alliance's monopoly on advanced technology has led to stagnation. Perhaps some healthy competition will restart galactic progress." The communication paused while Chen seemed to consult with someone off-screen. When she returned, her expression was more serious. "I've been authorized to share additional information that might help your decision-making process," she announced. "The vessels you see represent only a fraction of human military capability. They're our negotiation fleet, designed for impressive display rather than actual combat." "Meaning?" Admiral Vorthok asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Meaning our war fleet is much larger and equipped with technologies that make these ships look primitive. The force you're facing is what we send when we want to talk. What we send when we want to fight is different." A new holographic display materialized between the human ships, showing sensor data from deep space monitoring stations. The readings showed massive energy signatures moving through hyperspace. Signatures that dwarfed even the impressive vessels currently facing the Alliance. "Estimated arrival time for our combat units is 4 hours, Chen announced. "Their presence won't be needed if we can reach an agreement before then." General Exexith studied the sensor data with growing alarm. "Those readings suggest ships larger than anything we've ever constructed. How is such scale even possible?" "Different approaches to engineering problems," Chen replied. "When you expect to fight outnumbered, you build ships designed to engage multiple opponents simultaneously." "Ship-to-ship combat ratios?" Commander Zalthon inquired. "Our smallest combat vessels are designed to engage dozen Alliance battlecruisers simultaneously. Our largest are designed to sterilize entire star systems if necessary." The casual mention of system-wide destruction capability sent chills through the Alliance command structure. Even their most powerful weapons couldn't achieve such comprehensive devastation without massive deployment of resources over extended time periods. "You're describing planet-killer technology," Ambassador Kexthul observed. "We're describing survival technology," Chen corrected. "When your species' existence depends on your ability to deter aggression from superior numbers, you develop very comprehensive deterrence." Admiral Vorthok found himself in the unprecedented position of facing an enemy that claimed capabilities beyond his ability to even comprehend, much less counter. Every conventional strategy seemed inadequate against forces that operated outside known technological parameters. Status of our own system defense networks? He requested from his tactical staff. 87% of installations remain offline due to ongoing cascade failures. Repair estimates now suggest weeks rather than days for restoration of full capability. So we're facing unprecedented enemy strength while our own defenses are systematically failing, General Exexeth summarized grimly. It appears the humans have been planning for this confrontation since their first contact with galactic civilization, Commander Zalthon observed. Every interaction, every trade agreement, every diplomatic exchange has been preparation for this moment. Ambassador Chen's image flickered as the transmission was briefly interrupted, then stabilized. I apologize for the interference. We're receiving updates from our other operations throughout Alliance space. Other operations? Admiral Vorthak demanded. Completion of infrastructure modifications, Chen explained. While we've been talking, our technical teams have been updating your defensive networks with improved quantum processing capabilities. The implications took several seconds to sink in. The humans weren't just sabotaging Alliance systems. They were upgrading them. Explain, Commander Zalthon ordered. The modifications we've made to your installations weren't designed solely for temporary disruption, Chen revealed. They were designed as upgrades that could be activated when appropriate. Your defensive networks are now significantly more capable than they were yesterday. More capable of what? General Exexeth asked suspiciously. Protecting Alliance territory against the threats we've both been discussing. The Devourers, the machine intelligences, the energy parasites. Your old systems were inadequate against such enemies. Your new systems, properly implemented, should provide effective protection. The revelation shifted the entire context of the confrontation. The humans weren't just demanding independence. They were offering technological advancement to their supposed enemies. Why would you strengthen our defenses? Admiral Vorthak asked. Because we share this galaxy, Chen replied simply. Human independence doesn't require alliance weakness. In fact, we prefer strong neighbors who can handle their own security problems. It reduces the chance that we'll be called upon to handle threats that should be alliance responsibilities. You're offering alliance rather than demanding submission, Ambassador Kexthul realized. We're offering coexistence based on mutual respect, Chen corrected. Alliance suggests subordination of individual identity to group consensus. Humans prefer cooperation between sovereign equals. A new communication alert interrupted the exchange. This time, the source was the Alliance's own deep space monitoring network, systems that had been offline for hours. Fleet Admiral, the communications officer announced with obvious surprise. We're receiving operational updates from installations throughout Alliance space. Systems that were offline are coming back online with enhanced capabilities. Enhanced how? Admiral Vorthak demanded. Processing power increased by factors of 10 to 50. Sensor range extended by similar margins. Defensive capability ratings show improvements across all categories. The tactical displays updated to show the restored Alliance infrastructure. Instead of the vulnerable, degraded networks they had been dealing with all day, they now showed defensive systems more powerful than anything the Alliance had possessed before the crisis began. Your installations are now equipped to detect and repel threats that would have overwhelmed your previous capabilities, Chen explained. Consider it a demonstration of human intentions. We could have left you weakened and vulnerable. Instead, we've made you stronger. In exchange for what? General Exexith asked. Recognition of human sovereignty and establishment of diplomatic relations between equals, Chen replied. Nothing more. Commander Zalthon's light patterns cycled through complex sequences as he processed the implications. You've simultaneously demonstrated your ability to destroy us and your willingness to strengthen us. You're offering partnership rather than demanding submission. Correct, Chen confirmed. The galaxy faces threats that no single species can handle alone. Cooperation between advanced civilizations is necessary for everyone's survival, but cooperation must be freely chosen, not imposed through force. And if we refuse? Admiral Vorthak asked. Chen's expression became regretful but determined. Then you'll discover what our combat fleets are designed to accomplish. But we sincerely hope that won't be necessary. The Alliance commanders found themselves facing a decision that would reshape galactic politics for generations. Accept human independence, and the precedent it might set for other species, or face a war against an enemy that had demonstrated both overwhelming capability and remarkable restraint. We need to consult with our respective governments, Ambassador Kexthal stated. Understood, Chen replied. You have 2 hours before our combat units arrive. After that point, the decision may be taken out of our hands by military necessity. The communication ended, leaving the Alliance command to contemplate the most significant decision in galactic history. In the space around them, 1,000 human vessels waited patiently while their commanders debated the future of interstellar civilization. The age of unquestioned Alliance dominance was ending, but what would replace it remained to be determined. The humans had offered partnership, but accepting it would require acknowledging that the galaxy had changed in ways that could never be reversed. In the depths of space, quantum processors hummed with new capabilities, while enhanced sensors swept the void for threats that had previously been undetectable. The Alliance was stronger than it had ever been, but that strength came with the recognition that they were no longer the strongest force in the galaxy. The next 2 hours would determine whether that recognition led to cooperation or catastrophe.